Hello, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about one of my favorite topics, personal branding and branding. I fell in love with branding when I was in design school because I just think it's the most important thing. And I just love how a brand is one of those things that can communicate what you do and evoke a feeling inside of people. And I just think it's incredibly important and not something that should ever be overlooked. And, especially as people are building businesses or starting personal brands, really sitting down and setting a solid foundation for your branding is important. So yeah, I wanted to make this video just to outline 4 things that I feel you really need to think about when building your brand, sort of like those starting points to get the ball rolling and to get you thinking, okay, what am I doing for each of these things and how is it all coming together? Number 1 would be your values. So how are you going to communicate your values with your customer? And I think this is incredibly important, especially in today's day and age, because people really do look to brands to make sure that their values align with those brands. And I feel more so now than ever before in the past. People want to support brands that they know really align with who they are as a person and what they stand for. So as a brand, you really need to communicate your core values, what you stand for, really get that clear in your messaging and in your voice, and something that you should set in stone from the get-go. So if you are starting a brand and you haven't really even thought about your values, I would highly recommend thinking about that, because that is something that is also going to set you apart from your competitors, and really, knowing what it is that makes you unique and the things that you're going to stand for as a company, as a brand, as a personal brand, and all of that jazz. The next thing that is extremely important to keep in mind is how are you going to communicate how you add value to your customer's life, so your customer or your client. This is another thing, that people are really looking for, and what makes you different from your competitors in this sense as well. If you're like, I don't know, whatever business, like a coffee brand, what makes you different? And how do you add value to your customers that's different from every other single coffee brand out there? Why are people going to buy from you over somebody else? And what is that value that you're providing to your customer or to your clientele that they are going to be able to connect with you and be like, yes, I need that. And that is extremely important. So your values as a company and also how you create value for your customer are 2 extremely important things that make up a brand as a whole. Next is the visuals, and never underestimate the power of a strong visual brand. This is my favorite part of branding because I'm an extremely visual person and I can really appreciate good visuals when it comes to branding. I just love to admire great brand visuals. Like I said, just never underestimate it, because this is something that is going to make you recognizable. I love visual branding because I think it's something that can also, it's almost like a universal language. Like when you think of, I don't know, something like the Nike swoosh, no matter what language you speak, everybody knows that's Nike. And that has just become so recognizable globally. And I think that is extremely powerful. What I also love about visual branding is it's something that can convey sort of who you are and what you stand for, and that feeling you want to evoke in people. It all comes through a lot of the visuals as well. So you can choose your colors strategically, choose your imagery strategically, make sure all your graphics align strategically, and that is going to all come together, and someone can look at it and be like, oh wow, that feels super high-end or super high fashion, or ooh, that feels super cozy or really comfortable. So just by having the right visuals all working together, you're able to evoke those feelings in people, and people can get a sense of who you are as a brand just from the visuals. So if you think of brands like, just for an example, like Apple or or Starbucks or something like that, you immediately get those visuals in your mind because they are two brands that have done an incredible job at visual branding, and you immediately get that feeling that comes through you inside when you think of those two brands. You know, when I think of a brand like Apple, it's like super sleek, super clean, very minimalistic, yet so strong, and they're very, very great at their branding across all fronts. Even when you're in the store, you know, you get that feeling and you really get the sense of their branding to even just the box that your computers come in or your products come in. So they're a company who's done an extremely great job at their visual branding and having it all come together. Yeah, this is the kind of stuff I just love talking about because I think something like that is extremely powerful, and I feel like it's something that is quite often overlooked, especially, you know, when you're starting out in business or you're starting and people like to, you know, just get their businesses going, which of course, but I think that is really important to keep in mind, especially when starting out, is like, how do I want my customers or my clientele to feel when they see my things, and how is this also going to attract my target customer? Because I think a lot of the time people are drawn to the aesthetics of a brand, and that's what draws them in initially, but then the things like your values and how you provide the value to your customers is what keeps them around. So yeah, very important to keep in mind. I think the visuals are that initial like, ooh, that looks good, but then it's everything else as a whole that sort of keeps people coming as those repeat customers. And lastly, your customers or your client, these are gonna make up your brand as well. And I feel like this is something that's kind of also forgotten about. It's like you can have those other three things all together, but your brand really comes to life when you start having customers and clients and people are talking about your brand, because ultimately what they say and what they feel about your brand is what makes your brand. How you interact with your customers, you know, how their experience as a whole, because that can really make or break you as well. You can either put a sour taste in people's mouth, or you can really thrive in that area, and that's going to evoke that feeling in your customers as well. Do they feel confident in you as a brand? Do they know they're going to get that great customer support? All of that sort of comes together as well. And what are they telling their friends about you? What are they telling their family about you as your brand? And I think that is extremely important as well, and not something that should ever be overlooked, because ultimately what they say and how they feel about your brand is your brand. So those are sort of what I coined to be the 4 biggest things when creating a brand. So really sitting down and thinking about all of those things before ultimately launching even, but I know sometimes it's hard. Sometimes we get rolling and it's hard to stop and think about things. But ultimately, you know, you really want to have that solid foundation and have these things sort of in line and give you that clear direction. And I feel like it just makes you stand stronger in your 2 feet and know these are our values. This is what we look like. This is how it's going to roll out, and it makes things just so much easier moving forward when you set that foundation. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Honestly, this is one of my absolute favorite topics and why I personally love helping people build their brands, because I just, like I said, I feel like it's just so powerful in having all of those elements come together and work harmoniously together. So if you're thinking about starting a brand, or you know, you have no idea where to start, or you're wanting to rebrand, that's definitely something I can help you out with as well. I offer those services, so I will leave that in the description bar. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I will catch you in my next one. Bye.